the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, or ticker symbol SCHD, did just as of recently, of course, announce that it's going to undergo a 3-for-1 share split. This has a lot of investors confused on whether or not this changes anything. Is this bearish? Is this bullish? And what this really means for the future of this ETF. Now, in my opinion, I think this is going to be extremely bullish for SCHD, and across the entire community of dividend growth investors, I've been seeing a lot more than that than I even expected. But in this video specifically, I'm going to go through 5 different reasons and explain why exactly I do think that this is extremely bullish, what this changes moving forward, and what you should know if you have any shares of SCHD in your portfolio. So like I said, if you hold SCHD or maybe you've ever planned on it, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the market. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. So the first reason on why I think this share split is going to be extremely bullish is because post-split, a lot more investors, especially retail investors, are now going to own much more than 100 shares of this ETF. Now, why is this important? Well, as you can see right here on the options chain, if you're looking to sell covered calls and earn a ton of extra premium, which is a great strategy, I do it all the time, you do need to own at least 100 shares of the underlying. Now, as of right now, because SCHD ETF has not split, SCHD to buy 100 shares of right now would cost around $8,500 in order to sell a single contract and in order to sell covered calls. Now, this also means that for investors out there that currently have 35 shares of SCHD or 40 shares of this ETF, they post-splits will then have over 100 shares of this ETF, which means, you guessed it, they're going to be able to sell covered calls and start earning premium off their shares of SCHD if they, of course, choose to do so. Now, along with that, because SCHD is a dividend growth style ETF, and a lot of investors that buy into SCHD are sort of interested in earning income, I do think that SCHD holders, a lot of them at least, will be interested in selling covered calls. So I personally think that alone is going to be a huge positive for the option traders out there that have been wanting to sell covered calls on SCHD, but just haven't had enough shares to do so as of yet. Now, the next reason I think this is going to be extremely bullish, I'm talking about the share split for SCHD, is because now a lot more investors are going to be able to purchase SCHD a lot more frequently. Now, what I mean by this is that even though a lot of brokers as of right now across the market, like Robinhood, Charles Schwab, Webull, JP Morgan, etc., even though a lot of these different stockbrokers do offer fractional shares, which means you don't even have to buy a whole share of SCHD for $85. You could just buy 20 bucks of it or $10 of it, etc. There is, of course, the reality that not every single stockbroker out there as of right now does offer this feature. I mean, a few of the stockbrokers that I actually use right now do not let you buy fractional shares. So that means that as of right now, if you want to buy a share of SCHD, you would not be able to buy a share unless you had enough for an entire share, which is $85 more or less as I film this video, which is honestly quite a bit of money for investors to come up with. Now, this means that for those investors out there that are on a brokerage that does not allow fractional shares, if they have $35, $40 in their cash balance, they then will be able to buy an entire share of SCHD, which again, maybe some of you guys watching this video might be saying, well, who out there doesn't have enough money to buy an entire share of SCHD? A ton of retail investors might not have that much money in their cash balance. So I think the fact that a lot more investors out there will not be able to gobble up an entire share is going to be extremely bullish and is going to allow especially smaller investors stack more and more shares over time. Now, that also brings me into my next point. I also think that post-split, there's going to be a lot more buying frequency for a lot of investors out there. I mean, for me specifically, I, as of right now, have been buying around a share of SCHD every single trading day for quite some time, but that's because I have a relatively large amount of cash balance to work with. But moving forward, when SCHD quote-unquote costs 1/3 of the price moving forward post-split, I think a lot more investors out there will once again be able to buy a lot more shares a lot more frequently. For example, for me personally, I've been buying around 1 share more or less of SCHD over the past few years for say $70 or $80 depending on which trading at. Moving forward, if it's only $33 per share, I'll probably buy 3 shares in a day, maybe 4 shares in a day, because again, that's sort of the cash balance that I'm working with. So I think simply put, the buying frequency is going to go up, and I think because it's perceived as cheaper, even though it's really not, I think a lot more investors are going to follow. Now, the next reason I think this is bullish is because I think this is going to cause a ton of FOMO and a ton of momentum for this ETF. Because again, once it's trading at say $25 per share, $28 per share, I think there's going to be a ton of volume, a ton of trading volume. And I think this ETF will be trading at $30 per share, which means $90 per share very, very shortly. Now, the last reason I think that this is bullish is this right here. I found this on investopedia.com. It says right here, stock splits are generally done when the stock price of a company has risen so high that it might become an impediment to new investors. Again, SCHD is trying, of course, to get as many new investors into the fund and to buy as many shares as possible. It then says, so a split is often the result of growth or the prospects of future growth. And it could be a positive signal. In addition, the price of a stock that is just split may see an uptick if the nominal share price attracts new investors, which I 100% think it's going to do so. Now, whether or not this split is really going to affect your specific situation, maybe like I said, you do want to become an option seller, maybe you want to sell covered calls, and all power to you if that's what you're interested in. I personally, like I said, do that across my 7-figure portfolio all the time, and I earn a ton of income from doing so. Or maybe you're not someone that personally wants to sell covered calls, but maybe, like I said, you have a little bit less cash balance to work with and you're using a stock market brokerage that does not offer fractional shares. Maybe that's the reason why the stock split is going to be more important to you. But regardless, whatever your reasons are or your reasons aren't, I do personally think that this is going to be bullish and is going to drive a ton of volume to SCHD, as well as attract a ton of new retail investors that might not have as much money to buy a single share of SCHD as it sits. So now that we went through 5 different reasons on why I think SCHD's share split is going to be extremely bullish, I lastly want to hear from you guys down below. Do you think this is going to be bullish or bearish? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like down below and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.